This is a quick walk through the key features of sentencing guidelines for magistrates in England and Wales. The application opens with a sort of what's new, what's been changed since the last release. We also give judicial information such as the Magistrates Court Sentencing Guidelines version, which is currently update 7, update 8 from the 20th of August 2012. So straight into the offence indexes, we provide A to Z with a Rolodex function to jump to sections, a list by page. If you know you have to go to a certain page, you can get there quickly. By offence group, and this is the same index that we have in the front of the Magistrates Court Sentencing Guidelines. Again, we can jump down to any section. And also, quite helpful to have a list of offences by Act of Parliament. So when you have an obscure offence description, at least the Act of Parliament should be accurate. So again, we can jump through that. Just going back to group, you obviously notice we have some coloured tabs on the indexes, and these relate as closely as possible to those in the Magistrates Court Sentencing Guidelines folder. So if you get through to motoring, you recognise the colour for that, and so on and so forth. The key purpose of the application is to give you, in the assembly room, a method of preparing your list of offences for your court hearing. So we're going to build up a list of offences from the court listing. So we may have a collection of offences. We'll just go through and highlight some that we may be expecting. We can just simply scroll through this list. And as we're adding these favourites, we're simply starring an item. These are being added into our list of offences. So if I've selected common assault, in fact it was a different public order offence, I could deselect that, and the next time we display favourites, that will be disappear from the list. We'll have dangerous driving, and you can see we've now removed and added a different offence. Okay. So, as we're going through to view an offence, if we simply click on an offence name, we can go directly to the offence. We can double click to zoom in to that particular offence. We can tap to go to the next page, or tap to go to the facing page, depending on the offence makeup. And finally, we can see the offence page number, useful for assisting your colleagues who are looking for a page, and we can also make favourite the offence from within the offence viewer. The application can also be used in any orientation. Now, just because YouTube has a preference for a sort of landscape view, that doesn't mean we shouldn't mention that you can choose to view your Census Guidelines application using any particular format. So we could go through to enforcement of fines, and that's laid out in a portrait A4 type style. And the same is true for favourites. To quickly jump back to your favourites, we can just go to that, favourites, and then back to another one. So that's making a small point that yes, we can use the application really in any way that suits your style of working. So we're back in landscape mode. Just highlight an option within the application. If we have a judicial update, such as the forthcoming update 8, you'll have an update badge displayed, you'll have a description of the update, and an update button that will update your application. This will typically be updating the Magistrates Court Sentencing Guidelines. Let's just run through some of the other tools that we have in the application. On the bottom toolbar, we have a fines pop-up, and this is the Guidelines fine page found at the back of the pronouncements manual folder. We have, importantly, a fines calculator. This works by offering band A through to E, with the typical 400 and 110 RWI assumed income, and the option of selecting either a weekly or a monthly income for our fines calculation. So perhaps a monthly, we could choose between third, quarter, 10% and not guilty. We can pick the fine costs from a set of buttons that we can customize. We can also add in other things such as perhaps compensation. And we have then the option, this is just a single fine, to then move into multiple fines when we have many offences for that offender. So we could say this could be a C fine for fail to provide information. We could add a fine for another offence and another offence. We now have a running total of fines for this offender, and we can quite simply correct any of those by removing and then re-adding a fine if required. Let's just take it back to the single fine calculator and just highlight some other options. We can also increase or decrease a fine band so that we can adjust for the offending or mitigating factors for that offence. We have a drink drive calculator which works with the 3 different systems in use in England and Wales. We have months and days, weeks, and Vernon Mann Consultancy Limited. It's quite simple to use. We simply scroll through to the length of disqualification. So we have month of reduction, last day of disqualification, reduced disqualification, and course completed by dates. And for an offence or a disqualification that happened last week, we could simply scroll that back to that particular day, which adjusts all of these dates. We can also just pop out to the rehabilitation course advice if we need to reference that for the offender. We give you a quick pop-up of the next 10 weeks adjournment. So if this is a Saturday court, we could adjourn probably to a weekday, but it gives you at least the dates for those weeks. And we've already covered the favourites pop-up, which is all the favourites we put into the application. Further customization, we can actually put documents, our own collected documents, into this area within the application. So to put documents into my Sentencing Guidelines application, I'm going to connect my iPad to iTunes. I'm going to go into the Applications menu. I'm going to scroll down the list of those applications and find Sentencing Guidelines. I'm going to click my Add button and go and find all the additional documents I'd like to have reference for. So this is a list of the documents I could actually find useful as my own reference in court. So these, for example, could include specific guidelines or particular material you've had through from your Justice's clerk. This is my probation programs for Warwickshire, and so on and so forth. And of course, our little letter concerning the use of technology in court. So I'm just going to open those and now sync them through to my iPad. That takes just a few minutes to sync the iPad, push those items through to the My Documents section. So we've completed the update in iTunes. We can now see documents inside My Documents. And I can go into any of these documents. I can also make any that I think I might need a favourite. And we can now see that favourite listed upon My Documents. Okay, so finally, just finish off customization of the application. If we go to Settings, which is on your iPad, and we scroll down to sentencing guidelines, we have a number of options for customizing how your application functions. So the offence indexes, you can choose which particular group you prefer to use. If you're primarily in family, you may change your default bench book, and correspondingly, if you're also doing family, for pronouncements. If your particular bench uses weeks or VMCL, you can again favourite that particular type of calculator. And finally, we can adjust any of our fine cost buttons, 60 through to 145. We can adjust the RWI, assumed income and benefits income. And we can also adjust how our offence viewer works, and indeed if we choose to use Adobe Reader instead of the standard viewer. For those using an iPad, we can also perhaps turn on film strip thumbnails, and for those who are expert, we can automatically hide the toolbar. You just need to know how to get it back. And that's a quick summary of the options you have within iPad settings. And that concludes an introduction to sentencing guidelines for iPad. You can also get a quick look through the help guide, and please look at the website sentencingguidelines.co.uk for more support and options. Thank you.